Hey guys, I'm going to go over some of my food prep today. As some of you might have seen, I'm in a ketogenic diet right now on my prep, so my fats are definitely higher. I'm going to go over some of the fat sources, few of the other food sources. It's not super complex. I mean, if anyone that's done keto, it's pretty simple as far as options go. But I do have some interesting food sources, stuff that I'm burying in that's not exactly traditional. So I'll go over some of those. And I don't have them all in front of me, but I'll show you some of them. First one, fat source wise, coconut oil. I don't have that over here, but um, pretty traditional fat source. MCTs, really high in MCTs. I typically will position this around training when I'm using this. Now, you can really eat it anytime. It's a good fat source. I think it tastes pretty good. Um, I like it for the MCTs, obviously. I also like it because it's easily digestible, and the lauric acid in it can actually help with HDL cholesterol. That's kind of a little known fact. Um, One of the few fatty acids that might help directly with HDL cholesterol. So that's a really cool little tidbit on coconut oil. So if you struggle with HDL cholesterol and you have fats in your diet, I would try that for that reason. Um, let's see what else we have. So some of the less traditional, I have some duck fat. This is from Epic brand. They make things like some beef sticks, turkey sticks. It's all they make grass-fed, pasture-raised animals. This is same thing, same thing with the duck fat. This is actually the first time I've had this. I've always seen it, did a little bit of research on it, never really tried it. Since I was varying on my fat sources, I thought I would give it a go. It's not like a groundbreaking as far as health goes, but it's pretty decent fat source. One of the main things is not easily oxidized, so when you're heating it, cooking with it, things like that, it's not going to be oxidized easily, which is huge plus. And that's one of the main reasons I like it. Taste is really good. It's about, I mean, there's a blend of saturated fats. It has about 4.5 grams of saturated fat in a 14-gram serving, so not really high, not really low. A lot of monounsaturated fats, and it's not high in the polys, so that's another benefit. The fatty acid profile is pretty decent on this. So that is a couple of reasons I like to use that. Um, Good old trusty extra virgin olive oil, and I try to get this in a darker container just because that helps it not oxidize as easily as a lighter colored container. So that's kind of a little tidbit on your fats. I have the organic extra virgin, nothing too fancy. I usually don't cook with this much. It can oxidize a little bit, but it's, you know, I just basically add it to my food when I'm done. Pretty decent fatty acid profile. This one's low in saturated fat, but it's a little higher in some of the more beneficial unsaturated fats. Anti-inflammatory, a lot of antioxidants in olive oil, so that's kind of a cool benefit of the olive oil. Let's see what else we have. All right, grass-fed butter here. This is Organic Valley brand. I like grass-fed butter. It's cool. It actually has MCTs in it as well. So another source of MCTs. It's the difference being, it's grass-fed over grain-fed. The fatty acid profile is a lot better. You're going to get more CLA, higher omega-3s, and less. And being organic too is less toxins stored in the fat. So that's kind of a thing with organic, and people they kind of argue with me on the organic thing and whether or not it matters. As I prefer heavily fatty items to be organic if possible, just because that's where most of the toxins store. Those evil toxins, which toxins aren't necessarily evil, but in this case, eating a lot of fat in my diet, I like to try to get rid of as many as I can because it's pretty much a gateway for all of those if I'm eating processed unorganic fatty sources. So that's kind of a tidbit on the grass-fed butter. I don't know. I think those are my main actual whole food sources. I have a couple other things. I use, and I have them over here. I won't bore you with everything, but a couple of supplements. Okay, krill oil. This is an Antarctic krill oil. Again, we talked about this on one of the podcasts recently, and that should be coming out. more absorbable than fish oil typically, which is one of the main benefits. It does cost a little bit more, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're absorbing quite a bit more, so the cost isn't anymore. Honestly, it's usually a little bit less. There's some other antioxidants in here that fish oil doesn't necessarily contain directly, so that's kind of a cool benefit of krill. I have another mixed fatty acid supplement, and this has omegas 3, 6, and 9. And the reason, I'm sorry, yes, omega 3, 6, and 9. And the main reason is just because I want to get some extra things in there like GLA, which your body doesn't make. It's an omega 6. And omega 6s are typically not, they are essential. I mean, it's an essential fatty acid, but at the same time, we get an abundance of omega 6s anyhow. It's not really something you need to supplement with, except GLA can potentially be beneficial just because it's one that we don't get in our diet, and it's pretty anti-inflammatory. It's going to come from borage oil in here. It's one that I will typically use for myself. I might have other people use it. It's good for hormonal balance in women that have trouble with PMS and things like that, so I will integrate it that way as well. And food, as far as the other food sources go, I mean, if keto, it's going to be basic. It's basically going to be some veggies, protein, fat. Now, with the way I have my diet set up, I'm doing a more traditional ketogenic diet as far as protein goes. My protein isn't the more traditional, or the more bodybuilding type of keto where protein's really high and carbs are low and fat's high. I actually have my protein, but I need to keep my protein high enough that I'm obviously going to retain muscle tissue. So I'm at about 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is where my protein's at. And then I have my carbs. I don't really do net carbs. I just do total carbs, and I can get in ketosis around 50 carbs, and my net's going to be a lot lower than that, obviously, because my fiber is about 20 to 25 grams. So, I mean, my net of actual, carbs that are going to influence my blood sugar are going to be 25, maybe 30, so not much, and that's spread out throughout my meals. Vegetable wise, my main ones are zucchini. I like zucchini. I do quite a bit of that just because it has a lot of water in it and you get a lot of volume. It's really nothing else to it. Digests pretty easily, so it's kind of a trusty vegetable source. Broccoli. I'll do broccoli. Cauliflower. I like this rice cauliflower, and actually was working on making some of it. You can see here. It's kind of little chunks. I like the rice cauliflower. It's pretty good. I'll do lettuce, different varieties of lettuce and stuff as well. Again, I do some organic produce. Most of my produce is actually organic, just depending on what I'm getting. But those are, 1, 2, 3, 4, my main sources, and I'll also add in some mushrooms too. I do different varieties of mushrooms. Shiitake mushrooms are good. They're pretty nutrient dense, and I'll just do the plain white ones too, and portobellos at times. But I don't do a ton of the higher carb vegetable sources like bell peppers and things like that. Not right now. I normally would, and Brussels sprouts, but I just want more food volume, so I save it, to be completely honest. So I don't do a lot of that. As far as protein sources go, I keep it to probably four different sources. I could put whole eggs in the fat source part. I do quite a few whole eggs, and I do pastured eggs. Now, when you go to the grocery store, you're going to see your regular eggs. You'll probably see cage-free eggs or free range, and that's kind of a deceiving term. I mean, really, they're not. It's potentially a little bit better than your typical egg, and you could argue with that. But pastured is a lot better because you're literally getting the chicken that is out in the pasture. They are, they're grazing off natural foods. It's not just a chicken that's out of a cage, but eating the same food as they were if they were in the cage. So pastured is definitely the way to go if you're going to spend a little bit extra money on the eggs, and I always get the pastured eggs. So I could add that into fat sources, but it's also one of my protein sources. So moving on, I do a couple lean meats, and that's mainly so I can add extra oils and stuff to it and get the mixed nutrient meals. I'll do typically lean ground turkey, lean chicken, and I don't do anything fancy with those. I mean, they're low fat. Or typically, really low fat foods, like I said, with the toxin part, not really anything to worry about there. I don't go any crazy. I don't do grass fed with those either, because it's really pointless to do a grass fed meat that's has 1 to 2 grams of fat, and it doesn't really make any sense because the fatty acid profile is pretty insignificant at that point. So those are nothing fancy. I do ground most of the time. I just get stuff ground. So with beef, I do the grass fed, and I try to get grass finished if I can. So grass fed, and then actually having them finish on grass and not on grain. You can't always find that, and you might have to ask to figure out if it's if that's even something that the companies are doing. You can email them, you can ask. No one in the store is probably going to know. I highly doubt it. But some of them will say, it's kind of popping up a little bit more now because people are being a little more aware of it. But the higher fat meats, beef, essentially, I'm doing the grass fed and grass finished if possible. At the very least, grass fed. So those are my main protein sources. I do some kind of non-traditional ones too. The Epic brand, the same people that make the duck fat, they do some cool stuff with pork rinds, and I really like pork rinds. They're 0 carb. Basically, it's pork skin fried, is what it is. Now they put a spin on it. They use better quality pork and better quality oils to fry it in, and I don't have all the information in front of me. They tell you exactly what they do with it, and it's not your traditional pork rind, but they taste good. I don't have those right now. I did, but I have more coming. They're actually priced pretty good, surprisingly, because pork rinds really aren't that expensive anyhow. So that's kind of a treat. I really like those. They're very airy too, so you get a volume. It takes you a little while to eat them. They're crunchy. They have good flavor. So I really like those. The only other really non-traditional source on occasion, I will do the Quest protein brand chips. They're about 4 grams of carbs, depending on, I think all the new formulas 4 grams of carbs. They reformulated it, and I like the new ones a little bit better. I'll do those 4 grams of carbs with 1 to 2 grams of fiber, mainly from psyllium husk, depending on the flavor that you get. And normally the ones I get have 2 grams of fiber, so it's really 2 net carbs if you want to count the net carbs. I'll put those in the meals. And then egg whites, I'll use egg whites too. That's pretty much my extent of my protein sources. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Not really, nothing else, to be honest. One fat source I did leave out actually was, a couple of them, but I won't go over all of them. Macadamia nuts, so dry roasted, salted. I like the salted ones. This is my favorite. They're a little pricey, but hey, I'm not really too worried about it when it comes to food. That's not something I really budget with much. So I like the dry roasted macadamia nuts, and I'll also use walnuts. They have a couple of the better fatty acid profiles. Walnuts actually a little higher in omega-3s than most of the other nuts, but when I'm looking at nuts, I'm basically seeing which one has the lowest carb count and the highest fat count. So I'm not eating up a bunch of my carbs from a little tiny quantity of 20 macadamia nuts and not getting to eat any vegetables, which fill me up. So macadamia nuts pretty low in that regard, it's carb wise, and walnuts are as well. So those will be my 2 main fat sources. There's a couple others, pecans I'll rotate in here and there. Usually not almonds, maybe, but really would rather not waste the extra 1 to 2 carbs. So those are my main sources. I'm going to take a peek in my fridge real quick. I don't think I forgot anything in the video as far as food goes. I think that's pretty much everything. Yep. I think that's most of it. I might have forgot something that wasn't too awfully important. I should mention that I do add a little bit of fiber sometimes. I feel that through my vegetables I get enough soluble fiber, so if I add any, I add a few grams here and there of dietary cellulose fiber. Nutricology brand, just to help keep bowels normal. And the only other thing I'll add food-wise, it's kind of food, is the Graze powder, Project 80 Graze powder, just for extra greens. And that's it, guys. that's basically it. I didn't go over supplements or anything like that. That's a whole nother long video, but those are my main food sources right now. I'll keep you guys posted on how everything's going. I really like this approach. I do well on keto. I feel pretty, feel pretty level. I'm actually adding the exogenous ketones in now too. I'll use those throughout the day. I might talk about that in a different video, but that is what's going on food wise. I'm going to get back to food prep and hope everyone has a good night.